How are Republicans going to use leverage in their fight with Democrats when the Democrats are actually the ones with the upper hand in the eyes of voters?
Oh, I'm sure Democrats will be more than happy to open the government now. The election's over. I mean, part of the reason they shut it down was to get through tonight.
I mean, I
would suspect they'll be glad to open it up by the end of the week.
Adam Schiff, he was like, hold the line.
AOC, there's lots of rumors of people wanting to open it.
Look, I don't see what is the incentive for Democrats to back down when voters are basically saying Trump's not doing enough, it's the Republicans' fault, and then they basically handed the keys in this past election to the Democrats. Where's the leverage?
Again, these are blue states electing Democrats, not a shock. Democrats clearly wanted this shutdown to get through Election Day. I do think they are facing pressure from their internal coalitions. The unions, the air traffic controllers, the government employee unions are desperate to get the government back open. They're feeling a little bit of internal heat. But again, the election's now over. I'm sure tomorrow morning phones will start ringing and it'll be open soon enough. This was a political shutdown, and that's what they did, and now we're through the election.
Hey, welcome to Courageous Media. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate everybody rolling up on this interesting Monday. The shutdown is over. Scott Jennings called it correct. Scott Jennings either must have a crystal ball, he must be prescient, or he just knows Democrats, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, like the back of his hand, more than his nicotine-stained fingers. This is interesting stuff because, as you know now, the shutdown has ended. Is it officially over? No, because they have a couple more procedural votes, and then it has to go back to the House. But Johnson's already signaled that that's going to be a done deal. So let's dive right into this. I really appreciate everybody rolling up. William, thanks so much for being here. First in, if you're here, please smash that like button for me, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let us know you're here in the comments. So let's dive in. Fox News on the end of the shutdown via the first procedural vote that happened last night around 9 p.m. Here we go.
Let's begin with Madeline Rivera live from Washington with the latest on when we can expect this shutdown to officially end. Maddie, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. Well, the vote the Senate took overnight is the first step in a series of procedural maneuvers. And of course, the House will have to vote on the package, too. So it will take a few more days before the government reopens. But Sunday's vote was the first clear sign that a bipartisan deal had been reached after a roughly 40-day stalemate. The Senate voted 60-40 to back a revamped GOP funding bill that would keep the government open until the end of January. 8 Democrats joined Republicans to pass the bill, including Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin, Senators Tim Kaine, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Jackie Rosen, among others.
This is the beginning to show and fight for Americans across the country. Let me just say this. With the government open, we can focus on passing a full bipartisan budget for 2026.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. So let me be clear. No one in the Senate chamber wants to extend the ACA tax credits more than I do.
I joined this group to make sure that we could get important protections for federal employees. And what we have in this bill is the restoration of all the furloughed employees and a guarantee of their back pay.
So despite them touting what they did get, these Dems are facing criticism from their party because the package does not include a deal on Obamacare subsidies. It only includes a guarantee on a vote for the tax credits, far from what progressives and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had pushed for.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. We got a lot of work to do, but to be honest with you, tonight was not a good night.
Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna is already targeting Schumer, saying Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop health care premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for?
So we've got the Democrats caving on the shutdown. As Scott Jennings said in the opening clip, this was a political shutdown from start to finish. So I think 3 things have come to fruition that have actually brought this thing finally to an end. One, as Scott Jennings said, the election is over. Most of this was a political shutdown. It was an attempt to gain political advantage, especially in the blue state elections, these off-year elections. And they were able to win essentially all of those. It was a clean sweep, essentially for the Democrats in the blue states, not in the red states, because other red states did red state stuff like passing constitutional amendments here in Texas for voter ID, and you must be a citizen to vote and prove that, and things like that. So once the election was over, you got the more moderate senators that were suddenly willing to make a deal, suddenly willing. I think the other thing, I guess it's the conflict, you had mounting pressure from, actual sane, I can't believe I'm calling John Fetterman sane. But anyway, John, from sane Democrats saying this is ridiculous. We've never shut down the government for this stuff. See, Fetterman hasn't been around long enough to know how to play the game from the Democrat angle. He hasn't been completely indoctrinated into you will toe the party line, and this is all about power, and this is not about the American people. Screw them. They're nothing more than pawns in the game. He's not there yet. He's still too new, and I think he's got at least a little bit of ethics and a conscience like most Democrats don't. So you've got that. I think the other thing that has engaged to bring these 8 senators to end the shutdown, this is my personal opinion. I think Obama started making some calls. And the reason Obama started making some calls is what this shutdown has done in the last 2 weeks, week to 2 weeks. It has shown a gigantic spotlight, a microscope on Obamacare, on the ACA. And people are starting to realize how big of a scam, how big of a disaster, how big of an ugly black hole the ACA is. People have started to realize that the reason healthcare is screwed up is not market economics. It's not just the insurance companies or the pharma companies. It is essentially the ACA in collusion with the insurance companies and the pharma companies. People are starting to realize that Obamacare was a fraud from the get-go. It was the stepping stone to single-payer socialized medicine. It was designed to fail. It was designed to suck. It was designed to destroy any last vestiges of market-driven economic healthcare. And so you've got premiums that always go up. Why? Because the government is involved. You've got care levels that go down. Why? Because the government is involved. And I think those 3 things played into this shutdown has to end now. We have got to stop shining a light on Obamacare. We're getting way too much pressure internally from the unions, from the SNAP benefit people. They're blaming the Democrats as much as the media wants you to think they were blaming the Republicans. They were not. Maybe in the blue states, I think it helped turn people out, but it wasn't because Republicans were getting blamed. It wasn't like they got a massive shift in independent vote. They really got the Republicans not turning out and the Democrats turning out. But check this out, because we've got a Democrat that actually admitted on the Joe Scarborough propaganda show that no, Democrats lost. Check this out. This is awesome stuff. As I pull that up, I really appreciate everybody being here. William, you were first one in. Lane Sanger in the house. Really appreciate you rolling up from Minnesota. Mom, 5NW, really appreciate Eric Smith here also as well. Awesome stuff, right? Check this out from Senator Angus King.
You have to go back to what the strategy was at the beginning of the shutdown. There were 2 goals, both of which I support. One was standing up to Donald Trump. The other was getting some resolution on the ACA premium tax credit issue. The problem was the shutdown wasn't accomplishing either goals, and there was there was 0 likelihood that it was going to. In terms of standing up to Donald Trump, the shutdown actually gave him more power, Exhibit A being what he's done with SNAP and SNAP benefits across the country. Oh, by the way, Joe, you're going to love this. Guess who's getting paid during the shutdown? Not the park rangers or air traffic controllers, the ICE agents. You have to go back to what the...
I love it. So here you got Angus King admitting the quiet part out loud. The shutdown was a disaster for Democrats on the national scale. It was a disaster for Democrats in Congress. The local elections in blue states, yeah, they elected Democrat governors, which was expected from the get-go. There was some hope at one point that they could turn New Jersey, but then you realize that Cheryl got hundreds of thousands of mail-in votes at the last minute. Somehow, hundreds of thousands of mail-in votes just showed up at polling places. I wonder how that happened in a blue state that allows unfettered mail-in voting without ID checks or any other audits or nonsense. So yeah, sure enough, they were able to win blue state elections in blue states. But here Angus King admits the quiet part out loud. They were getting serious internal pressure. They were being blamed. It didn't stop Trump. It didn't stand up to Trump. Trump got more popular. And it also still explains the Democrats winning elections because Trump wasn't on the ballot. The only person who kind of made it about Trump was the TDS Mondami guy, and he basically ran on free stuff in TDS in deep blue New York, where he essentially turned out all the migrants and where illegals are allowed to vote. So then you got Angus King admitting the other quiet part out loud. They were never, the Republicans, because Trump has taught them to fight, were never going to cave on the Obamacare subsidies. They were never going to cave on health care for illegals. The Republicans have grown a spine under Trump. They were never going to cave on the two biggest issues. Now, the one thing they did cave on, which I was somewhat upset about, but not nearly as upset as I would have been had Russ Vought done his job, was the reinstatement of government employees. Now, they fired about, I think all told, they fired about 6,000 permanently fired federal employees that I believe the way they've structured this deal, they will get their job back. Now, I've heard two wordings of the agreement. One wording was that all furloughed employees would be reinstated with back pay. I've heard another one that said the fired employees would be reinstated. So if it's the second reading, I'm a little upset about that because I want all those federal employees to stay away. We need to shrink the federal government. Now, this would have been a much more painful give from the Republicans had Russ Vought done what they said they were going to do and fire 700,000 people on day one of the shutdown. Remember, that was their threat that they did not make good on, and I don't know why they didn't make good on it. They should have. They should have shut down all the government programs. They should have fired 700,000 to 1 million bureaucrats, never to return because they were no longer funded by Congress. So fire them. Don't furlough them, fire them. But they didn't do that. They only fired about 5,000 that I can get record of. And so reinstating them is not that big a give. What they did not give on, though, was ACA or healthcare for illegals. All they gave the Democrats was, oh, yeah, we'll put it to a vote. Yeah, we got more senators than you do, so not going to happen. It is not going to happen. There will be no extension unless of the ACA subsidies, because even if the Senate votes for it, the House will not. Johnson's not going to let ACA subsidies keep going. Not going to happen. So I believe we have a major win in this one. Now, let's check this out, because that's basically what we see here on the Gallagher Show, as we have a Republican congressman has bit that much. Check this out.
Well, look what happened last night. 7 Democrats and an independent told their Democrat leadership, sorry, we're going to do what's right for the American people. We're going to reopen the government. That's what happened last night. We just saw that last night. You know what we saw last night? We saw compromise. We saw senators willing to put the good of the American people ahead of their crappy, puny political games. Look, Schumer and Jeffries had one goal. They wanted to inflict as much pain upon the American people with this contrived government shutdown long enough to make sure that all the Democrats who were supposed to win won Tuesday night. Now that the Democrats who were supposed to win won, it's over. Government shutdown's coming to an end.
Exactly. He's reiterating Scott Jennings' point. Now that they got now that they protected the Democrat seats, the governor's seats in Jersey and Virginia, and they got Mondami in New York, they're done. They were happy. And they were able to turn out enough fraudulent votes in California to get Prop 50 packs. That's all they were worried about. And once that was done, the government shutdown ended. Now we got Mike Johnson basically saying that the House is ready. The House will make sure that this gets done. So like I said, we saw in one of the opening clips that we still got a few procedural votes left, and the House has to vote on this compromise bill from the Senate. That is basically a done deal. Check out Mike Johnson.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very thankful to see you all this morning. I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. I don't think it's coincidental, you know how I think, but it's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly, some Senate Democrats finally have stepped forward to end the pain. It appears to us this morning that our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end, and we're grateful for that. At least some Democrats now finally appear ready to do what Republicans and President Trump and millions of hardworking American people have been asking them to do for weeks. But as we said from the beginning, the people's government cannot be held hostage to further anyone's political agenda. That was never right. And shutting down the government never produces anything. It never has, if you study history. And so here we are.
So you've got Johnson basically saying they're ready to reopen the government, so that this should happen this week. We should get this done sometime this week. It'll be officially reopened. You'll have everybody who was furloughed automatically come back, even those probably who are fired come back. You'll have back pay. You'll have full staffing back at TSA, full staffing back at air traffic control. But I love what the one Democrat senator said that, hey, you know the two groups of people that got paid during this whole thing? The U.S. military and ICE. That's correct. Trump made sure that our brave ICE agents who continued to deport people throughout this whole thing were getting paid, which was actually amazing. Eric Smith, I believe so. I think Fetterman's got 2 more years. So I don't know that he's in on 26. He wasn't elected in 20. Was he elected in 20? If he was elected in 20, then he's up for re-election in 26. And I absolutely think they will probably try to primary him. If he was not elected in 20, then he'll be in the next cycle, which will be 2028. So I'll have to check if he's up for election this time. If he is, I'm sure they will try to primary him 100%. They'll at least float a potential primary candidate out there and see how it's what kind of reaction they get from Pennsylvania Democrat voters. But yeah, they're not liking Fetterman because Fetterman was out and bold in the beginning about not doing the stupid shutdown. But now you've got 7 other Democrats that joined him, and in the meantime, while you've got the Democrats caving, you've got the leftist social media influencers going absolutely apoplectic. They are off the charts angry. They can't stand this. So I got this little montage. Check this out. This is absolutely hilarious. Here's the leftist social media influencers turning on the Democrat Party. They're turning on Schumer. You saw Ro Khanna's comment turning on Schumer. You saw Bernie Sanders basically lamenting the fact that the shutdown ended because he doesn't care if people get paid. He doesn't care if people get snapped. He doesn't care about any of that. It's all about raw power for these disgusting people. Check this out.
Well, it looks like Democrats are caving to Donald Trump and the Republicans.
We have breaking news right now. Senators have reached a deal to reopen the federal government, with some suggesting that Democrats are caving.
Oh my God!
So it turns out that Chuck Schumer was indeed behind the Democrat plan to cave.
We have treason in the ranks. And I guess whoever these folks are must want to be primaried.
What? This is all they're going to get is a promise.
The absolute cowardice of Senate Democrats. You will be primaried. We're coming for you, and we're not going to let you forget it. Do not get it twisted. You can get it braided. Don't get it twisted. We're coming for you.
What the fuck are you doing? Are you serious? This is just crazy to me. Like, they gave up this easily. Wow.
My dogs are not happy about it either.
Stop. So basically the Democrats came. But let's just be real with this.
So it appears the Democrats are caving.
Well, it looks...
These people are hilarious. They cannot stand It is all about inflicting pain and bringing Marxism and ultra-left progressive communism to America. And they cannot stand that the Democrats folded, that the government is now reopened, that they cannot use this as leverage. It's crazy, crazy stuff. But here we go. Here's your leftist influencers, basically staking out exactly what they think. How dare the Democrats cave? And Lynn Sanger, thanks so much. Fetterman is up for re-election in 2028. So this was all a political stunt. The political stunt is now over. ICE kept getting paid. And again, the Republicans have given up essentially nothing except maybe rehiring 5,000 people. But the vote, the promised vote on ACA will happen. I'm sure the Senate, John Thune will be true to his word. He'll give the Senate an up or down vote on, continuing the ACA subsidies. I don't think it'll pass, but even if they did get a couple Republicans to break and vote for that, it's not going to pass the House. It's going nowhere. There will be, I do not believe, if the Republicans actually end up voting to extend ACA subsidies, then we will have a totally different conversation because I will be apoplectic. Absolutely not. No more ACA subsidies, no more $800 billion of direct payment to Democrat donors. It's essentially USAID on steroids. So no, absolutely no extension of ACA subsidies, absolutely no money for healthcare for illegals. None of the above. I'm with you, Lynn. It won't pass. I don't think Johnson will let it. Even if you get a couple senators are fold, I don't think Johnson will let it pass in the House. And because Johnson is the speaker, he doesn't even have to bring it to a vote in the House. So this will be very interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did the Democrats cave? Did the Democrats lose this whole thing? Where are you in this? What's your thoughts on the whole shutdown shenanigans and who was the ultimate winner in the shutdown? In me, I believe it's Trump. I think Trump comes out smelling like a rose on this thing because the Democrats caved. I think he comes out vindicating the fact that they're not going to get their ACA subsidies. But would love to know what you think. Now, let's switch gears because we've got a totally different story that I want to get into. And that is the more breaking news on the Russia slash government treason slash Obama ICA shenanigans slash January 6th as it all rolls up into a gigantic grand conspiracy. And we've got more breaking news. We got Blaze News that broke massive bombshell. They broke it on Friday kind of tentatively, and then they doubled down on it and actually released all of the reports. So we're going to get into that. But before I do, please smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications. If you like Courageous Media, please share it with everybody that you know so that we can break it, so we can get on the right side of the YouTube algorithm. Really appreciate everybody being here. All right, let's check this out. A brief announcement from Tulsi Gabbard, and then we're going to get into what is the meat of this whole thing. Here we go.
We look at where we are now over the last several weeks. We've declassified and released documents that exposed how President Obama and leaders in the intelligence community knowingly manufactured a false intelligence document after the 2016 election was done, after the American people said, no, we want Donald Trump to go and be our commander-in-chief, not Hillary Clinton. And this manufactured document alleged that Russia aspired to help President Trump win the election with the aim of undermining his presidency and usurping the will and the voices of the American people who sent Trump to the White House.
I love what Gabbard said there. Essentially, Obama knowingly intended to overthrow a duly elected U.S. government. The definition of that is no less than sedition or treason. And he needs to be tried for that. And I firmly believe, and we're going to get into it a little bit later in this little segment, that they are aiming towards that the Trump administration is doing the background work, doing the heavy but quiet lifting. If you've ever seen a house built, if you've ever seen a building built, it looks like nothing's happening. There's a giant hole in the ground, and that's all you see. And that's all you see for months is nothing but a hole in the ground. But once the foundation is laid, boom, that structure can go up in weeks. And I've heard it said from many people, done the same thing myself, like, whoa, where the hell did that house come from? No, it's been being built for months. They were building the foundation, the part you don't see, the part that takes the longest, the part that doesn't really move the needle in terms of spectator sport. But once that foundation is laid, everything else can happen fast. And I'm going to get into the fact that I think that's what they're doing now. But check this out, little montage from President Trump. I want to get into, before we get into the two of the bombshells, two of the breaking stories that I think you're going to love. Check this out.
This was treason. This was every word you could think, have them stone cold. And it was President Obama. They caught President Obama absolutely cold. Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences. After what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. Biden was there with him.
So, Tulsi Gabbard and Trump are absolutely correct. This was 100% intentional. It was 100% treason. It was 100% wrong. Eric Smith, how much will the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity affect this? I don't know. It depends on, they'll re-adjudicate it, obviously. Most likely, if charges are brought against Obama himself, his attorney will automatically claim the presidential immunity statute, and there'll have to be a weigh-in from a judge. And if it goes whether it goes against Trump or against Obama, it'll probably go back up to the Supreme Court to determine whether this particular action falls under presidential immunity or not. We'll see. But it will not protect anybody else. The only person who would possibly be protected under that would be Obama himself. Nobody else will. Not Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Page, Strzok, none of them. And so let's get into two of the things that have happened that you need to know about in this entire investigation that's going on. Because I believe what the Trump administration is doing is they're using all of the related indictments of Comey, potentially of Brennan when that comes around, of Letitia James, of all the what's happening with Jack Smith, that they're all going to start linking up and pull this into a conspiracy charge. That's what I hope they do. But check this out, because the latest is that not just Brennan, but they've now issued subpoenas for the likes of Page and Strzok. Here we go.
Tonight, just in the past few minutes, Fox News Digital is now reporting a federal grand jury has subpoenaed former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, as well as others. It is part of the Justice Department's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. Sources say the trio were served with federal subpoenas today. Law enforcement sources also say up to 30 subpoenas will be issued in the coming days related to this investigation. We'll follow that. Tonight, too, New Jersey.
All right. So now let's get into the other breaking story. So that was number one, that they've started to pull in some of the lesser people like Page and Strzok. Now let's get to the other story, which I think is much, much bigger. And that is the fact that Steve Baker, who was also imprisoned during J6, who was caught up in all this nonsense, has now identified the pipe bomber. The Capitol pipe bomber, the pipe bombs outside the RNC and the DNC on J6. The J6 pipe bomber has been identified as none other than current CIA officer and former Capitol Police officer Check this out. This is amazing stuff.
Developed. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the frontline officers. You know, many of those frontline officers have become some of our most trusted sources. And by the way, they love the Blaze. They love our coverage. Just this past January 6th, I was there covering the certification of the election. Think about the irony of that. And I was there in the Capitol. I had 3 different officers, 2 plainclothes and 1 uniformed officer, stop me in the hallways of the Capitol building to whisper to me and say, "We love your work."
I have to tell you, because you're rooting out the bad guys. You know, all of the officers are not bad. There's a few. And your story that came out, I think yesterday, about the tear gas and the devices that were shot into the faces and heads of the protesters. Those guys who did this, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they're on tape. That helps the average officer, because you can now go, it was them.
That's right. Look, Glenn, we have...
So just to break for just a minute, what he's talking about here, and it's because the same person, what you're going to find out is the same person is implicated in both the shots that they're talking about and the pipe bomb situation. So check this out.
Warnings about chemical munitions.
So here you've got shooters up on the north side that are actually firing paintball munitions into the faces of protesters. And they were doing that because they know that these pepper ball paint munitions, if fired at close enough range into somebody's face, can be lethal. That was the point. The point was to start a riot. The point, they were up there trying to instigate, to start a riot while they had FBI, while they had all their 300 undercover FBI agents opening the building, pulling down barricades, breaking windows, blaming it on J6 people, opening doors to get J6 people into the Capitol. This was a Fedsurrection from start to finish. All right, let's go back to Glenn Beck, just to get you a little context as to what they're talking about when they're talking about the pepper spray shooting incident.
Examine this particular story that we released yesterday. We've been looking at this for years. We've done updates, but finally, Joe Hanneman and myself, what we did is we started drilling down into identifying who these officers were once we knew that they were taking deliberately, criminally negligent shots. These are training officers in use of less than lethal munitions, weapons, launchers, whatever they want to call them. And what we discovered by going straight to the manufacturers, by going straight to the people that certify the training officers, who train the training officers, is that they are told, instructed, it's printed on the sides of those weapons. You cannot aim them at people's heads, faces, necks, their groins, their kidneys. They can be deadly if you do so. And at the range that these training officers were firing these weapons in the first 10 minutes of the riot, these were deliberate shots. And one of our closest sources, a special operations guy from the Army, retired, very familiar with these devices, said that if they are training officers, they have uttered these words to their classes before. Oh, by the way, if you want to start a riot, shoot them in the head.
So going back to, this was a Fedsurrection from start to finish. So you've got training officers, Capitol Police training officers up trying to start a riot by shooting pepper ball munitions into the faces of rioters at close range. They were doing everything they needed to do to start a riot at the Capitol. And that includes the pipe bombs. Check this out.
Okay, so you were working on that story, and I don't want to get into what you found, but it's in that story that people will see. That's why I encourage them to read this story, because that story is connected to the next one. So when you started to find the individual, you you were buttoned up, you had video and everything else, and then you brought it to the government.
Yeah, for our next story, the follow up to this one, I did put some breadcrumbs in this story on purpose. But what we discovered was a character that high degree of probability is involved in the biggest scandal, as you mentioned earlier, not just of January 6th, but possibly our government's history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's at the highest levels. And you are going to name names. And I don't even know what I can ask you. Let me
just tell you this. When I stumbled on what I stumbled on, and because as I said, I've been pulling these threads for years, and I pulled one last Wednesday, 2 weeks ago today, rather. And when I pulled this thread, I was so shocked by what I saw, I immediately took it to a source in one of the most important, highest level investigative federal agencies in the country. I immediately took it to our sources there, and I said, you have to see this. After they looked at it for about 2 hours, the response that I got back was, holy F. And then the follow-up response was, she's one of us.
And when you find out the position, I mean, this is going to lead, it's not just this one person. This now will implicate so many people at the highest levels that had to have known because of what happened after January 6th. I mean, it's I mean, how big does this net get?
I don't know, but I will tell you there's a reason why. Look, there's a $500,000 reward on that, and there's a reason why I didn't take it to the people offering, or the agency or the bureau offering the reward. It's because we believe that they were actively engaged in the cover-up.
Okay.
There's no look, Glenn.
Let me pause right there. So to boil this down, what he did was he started pulling at threads, and what they found, because he was investigating this whole shooting incident, and what they found was this person right here, who was firing pepper ball shots into the faces of protesters to start a riot, is the same person, Shawnee Kirkhoff, who planted the J6 pipe bomb. And they got it. He got it by analyzing their gait. Obviously, you can't do facial recognition because she's wearing a mask. But the thing that you cannot, you can fake it only if you're trying to fake it. But once you've got a match, you've got a match. It's like a fingerprint. Yeah, you could scar up your finger and take a fingerprint test, and that might mask it for a while. But once that heals, the fingerprint comes right back. The same thing is true, and I know this from selling security software. Your gait is as unique as your fingerprint. The way you walk, when I say gait, the way you walk, how your legs move, how they get placed, is 100% unique, and it's all in your subconscious. Unless you are actively trying to change it, and you have to do that every second of walking, then you will automatically revert back to your normal gait, which is as much as a fingerprint. And they have identified the pipe bomber as a Capitol Police agent, the same Capitol Police agent who was also firing potentially lethal rounds into the faces of protesters in the very beginning of the quote unquote riot, in the very beginning of the protest, in order to start a riot. The same person who has then moved on to the CIA and is now an agent in the CIA. So this wormhole, this rat's nest goes all the way to the bottom of the deep state. Now, I said in the beginning that I believe the Trump administration, and this is hopeful belief, is doing what they're doing in order to build a foundation for the ultimate RICO/seditious conspiracy charge. I hope that's what they're doing. You've got all these independent investigations. They've now identified 300 federal agents, informants, and assets in the crowd. We have now identified the fact that it was the federal agents, informants, and assets that broke down barriers, that opened up doors, that egged people on into the building, that protected their confidential instigators. That people knew they were feds. There's the same with the 300 informants. We now know that the J6 pipe bombs were an inside job done by a Capitol Police officer who then moved onto the parapet and started shooting people with pepper bullets in order to start a riot. This was all an insurrection from the get-go. And it was an insurrection to make sure that all of their 2020 election shenanigans did not get examined by the Senate, to make sure that the Senate simply rubber stamped those elections and moved on. They had an inside person in Mike Pence to help make sure that happened. He was in on the scam. This goes all the way, and this is simply a continuation of their 4 years of election rigging warfare through Russia collusion hoax, through the 2 nonsense impeachments, through everything that they did in the deep state to try to derail the Trump presidency that they couldn't keep from happening in 2016. It's all part of the same seditious conspiracy. And so now this is what I believe is happening. This is again, I'm caveating this. This is hopeful belief. The RICO dragnets are cast. President Trump and his administration have been serving more than 350 lawsuits, 200 injunctions since January 25. This person believes they've been behind the scenes fighting, winning many of them, in order to get to a somewhat cleanup of a rogue system to clear the path for hundreds, if not thousands, of RICO charges. We have heard that they have impaneled a grand jury in Florida. Again, because it's conspiracy, you can impanel the grand jury wherever you want. All you need is, essentially a snippet of the conspiracy to happen there. And so they've got the Mar-a-Lago rate. So they've impaneled a grand jury in Florida. We'll wait to see what evidence they present, what it's actually about. The only thing we know is the feds have impaneled a grand jury there. So this is what I believe is happening. Dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, hiring all the federal police force to make the mass arrest. Let's hope this is happening the way they're thinking, because we do know that obviously these people all need to go to jail. Brennan, Clapper, Page, Strzok, all the Comey, all the above. Now, here's what the tree looks like, and it rolls right up to Obama. It includes Obama. It includes Lynch. It includes Comey, Clinton, Sally Yates, Andrew McCabe, who took over for Comey, Orr, Carlin, Page, Strzok, Baker, different Baker, Pre-Strap, all of these, everybody who was involved. And it goes down from there and down from there and down from there. You've got hundreds of people that were in on this, from FBI agents to CIA agents to Congress people to Mike Pence and more. So this is where I believe Trump is taking this. I hope so, because I don't think Tulsi Gabbard is out doing all this, just for her health. I think, and I want to believe, that there is a plan, there is a strategy, and that this is what you're doing. Let me know what you think in the comments. Really appreciate everybody rolling up today. Eric Smith, I'm with you. I can hardly hold my emotions back when I talk about J6. In fact, please keep an eye out. I hope it to be within the next week. I'm going to be interviewing a dear friend of mine, somebody who was caught up in this J6 conspiracy against rights, illegality perpetrated by the Biden regime, by the deep state. I'm going to be interviewing him in a long form interview. You're going to love that. He's got a book coming out about his J6 travails. So we're going to get him on the show. It's going to be epic. It's going to be awesome. You're going to want to be there. So just keep an eye out for that. I will be making more announcements as we get that scheduled. But again, thanks so much for being here. Lynn Sanger, I always thought J6 was fishy. It is 100% fishy. It is 100%. This is based on all the evidence I've seen. It is 100% a Fedsurrection. It was a false flag op from the get-go. It was never designed to be anything else. It was 100% designed to stop any audit of the 2020 election, to stop any senators from voicing the need to at least take a look at the 2020 results for potential election fraud in mail-in voting. They knew they could never allow that to happen because they knew they had manufactured 15 million votes nationwide through fraudulent mail-in voting. It's exactly what they did. That's why you had about 65 million voting in 2016. You had 80 million voting in 2020, and you went back to about 65 million in 2024. Those 15 million votes were 100% fraudulently fabricated by the Democrat Party. And they could not have let anybody look into that, or they'd have known that the election was rigged. So really appreciate everybody rolling up. Minced 154, thanks for being here. DJT, do not surrender anything to the commie-crats. I totally agree with you. Divided by algorithms, mainstream media are in the toilet. That's right. You can't watch the mainstream media. If they're talking, if their lips are moving, they're lying. As Mater used to say, if I'm lying, I'm dying. If I'm lying, I'm dying. If I'm trying, I'm lying. So really appreciate everybody rolling up. Thanks so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Please smash that like button for me, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Let me know you're here in the comments. And if you like the content, please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. And please consider supporting the channel. Join us as a member of the Courageous Army on YouTube. Just hit that join button. We'd love to have you become a part with Eric and all the rest of us here. Thanks so much for joining. Remember, God is good and he is sovereign. Until you catch you next time, have a great day.